The mahogany table in Morrison and Associates' conference room had never felt colder than when my mother slammed her manicured hand on it, declaring, "Finally, we can stop pretending Lila deserves anything from this family." 28 years of being their daughter, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, and she still saw me as the disappointment who chose healing over hedge funds. The real shock wasn't her words. It was the document my father slid across the table with my grandmother's signature, dated just 1 week before she died. "Your grandmother came to her senses," Dad said, adjusting his gold cufflinks, the ones Grandma Eleanor had given him for his 40th birthday. "The estate requires maturity. 35 years minimum for any inheritance. You'll have to wait 7 more years, sweetheart." Sweetheart. The same condescending tone he used when I told him I was choosing Johns Hopkins over Wharton. The same dismissive smile when I graduated summa cum laude. The same practiced disappointment when I matched into one of the most competitive pediatric residency programs in the country. My brother Marcus shifted in his Italian leather chair, trying to hide his smirk behind his coffee cup. At 36, he just cleared their arbitrary age requirement by a year. Perfect timing, really. His third tech startup had just failed, and I knew he'd been borrowing money from our parents again. The estate would solve all his problems. The lake house, the Manhattan brownstone, the investment portfolio, all of it requires mature management, Mom continued, her voice dripping with false concern. Eleanor understood that medical school, while admirable, doesn't prepare you for real financial responsibility. I almost laughed. Real financial responsibility? Like Marcus's failed NFT platform? Like Dad's 3 bankrupt restaurants? Like Mom's abandoned interior design business that hemorrhaged money for 5 years? Mr. Morrison, my grandmother's lawyer of 30 years, cleared his throat. He'd been unusually quiet since we'd arrived, letting my parents fill the room with their premature victory speeches. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he opened a leather folder I hadn't noticed before. "If I may," he said softly, "there seems to be some confusion about Eleanor's final wishes." "No confusion," Dad interrupted. "You called us here for the reading. We've all seen the age requirement. 35 for any grandchild to inherit. It's quite clear." "Indeed, there is an age requirement," Mr. Morrison agreed, pulling out a document. "But perhaps you should read it more carefully." My mother snatched the paper from his hands. I watched her face transform as she read, confidence melting into confusion, then hardening into rage. "This is wrong," she hissed. "The trust states the estate goes to the eldest grandchild who has reached 35. "No, Mrs. Hamilton," Mr. Morrison said patiently. "It states the estate goes to the youngest grandchild who graduated medical school. The 35 is in reference to a different clause entirely, the age at which the trustee positions rotate." The room went silent. Marcus's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. "That's impossible," he sputtered. "Lila's the only one who went to medical school." "Precisely." Mr. Morrison smiled for the first time since we'd arrived. "Dr. Hamilton, I believe congratulations are in order." I kept my face neutral, the way I'd learned during those brutal 36-hour shifts when showing exhaustion meant weakness. Inside, my heart was pounding the same rhythm it had when I delivered my first baby, when I'd saved my first life, when I'd realized that Grandma Eleanor had been playing a longer game than any of us imagined. She manipulated Mother. Mom's voice cracked. In her final days, when she wasn't thinking clearly. "Eleanor updated this trust 5 years ago." Mr. Morrison interrupted, "right after Lila's acceptance to Johns Hopkins. She was quite specific about the medical school requirement. Said something about wanting the estate to go to someone who understood the value of healing rather than hoarding. 5 years ago, when I'd sobbed in Grandma's garden because Dad had threatened to cut me off if I chose medicine over business. When she'd held me and whispered, 'Follow your heart, little bird. I'll make sure your wings stay strong.' This is contestable," Dad declared, loosening his tie. Mother wasn't sound of mind. "We have witnesses." "Who will testify that Eleanor Hamilton, who managed her own investments until the day she died, who beat you at chess every Sunday until last month, wasn't mentally competent. Mr. Morrison's voice carried an edge now. The same Eleanor who attended Lila's white coat ceremony via video call from her hospital bed. I remembered that call. Grandma in her oxygen mask, tears streaming down her face as I took my oath. "That's my girl," she whispered. "That's my legacy." Furthermore, Mr. Morrison continued, opening another folder, "there are specific provisions for family members who contest the will. Would you like me to read those aloud?" My parents exchanged glances. They knew Grandma well enough to know those provisions would be thorough and probably humiliating. "The properties," Marcus said desperately. Surely she didn't mean all the properties. "The lake house has been promised to me for years. I've already told investors. All properties transfer to Dr. Hamilton immediately," Mr. Morrison confirmed. "Including the lake house, the Manhattan brownstone, the Hamptons cottage, and," he paused, seeming to enjoy this, "the building at 485 Madison Avenue." My mother went pale. That's where we live. Your penthouse is part of the estate, yes. As of the 3 other units in the building currently rented at below market rates to family members. I finally allowed myself to look directly at my parents. These people who had spent 28 years telling me I'd never be good enough, smart enough, ambitious enough. Who had paraded Marcus's every minor achievement while dismissing my academic honors. Who had told everyone at last year's country club gala that their daughter was wasting her potential playing doctor. "Lila," my father's voice changed, attempting warmth. "Sweetheart, you can't possibly manage all this while completing your residency. The taxes alone are already handled by the estate's financial management team," Mr. Morrison interjected. Eleanor made sure everything would run smoothly regardless of Lila's schedule. She was very proud of her granddaughter's dedication to pediatrics. "We're your parents," Mom tried next, her voice wavering between threat and plea. "Family helps family. Surely you understand that now, with your new responsibilities." "I understand perfectly," I said, speaking for the first time since the reading began. "I understand that you tried to lie about Grandma's will. I understand that you were prepared to lock me out of my inheritance based on that lie. And I understand that you've already spent money you thought was coming your way." Marcus's face flushed. I'd hit close to home. "As for being my new landlord," I continued, turning to face them fully, "I think we should discuss market rates. Grandma's notes indicate you've been paying about 60% below market value for the past 10 years. You wouldn't dare," Mom gasped. "Wouldn't I?" I pulled out my phone, showing them an email. "I've already scheduled a meeting with the property management company. We'll honor your current lease terms, of course. All 3 months that remain." 3 months? Dad stood abruptly. "Our lease runs for another year. Month to month after the first 2 years," Mr. Morrison supplied helpfully. Eleanor insisted on it. Said something about flexibility being important in family relationships. The irony was perfect. Grandma had protected me even in this, making sure I had legal grounds to distance myself if needed. "Dr. Hamilton," Mr. Morrison said formally, "there are some additional documents requiring your signature. Perhaps we could handle those while your family processes this information." As I stood to follow him, Marcus grabbed my arm. "Lila, be reasonable. We're family. You can't just kick us out. What will people say?" I looked at his hand on my arm. The same hand that had pushed me into the pool at my medical school graduation party, ruining my dress because he couldn't stand not being the center of attention. "They'll say I'm a 28-year-old doctor who inherited her grandmother's estate," I replied, removing his hand. "What they say about you is your concern. You always were her favorite," Mom spat, abandoning all pretense. "Always playing the perfect granddaughter, manipulating her with your visits and calls. Visits you called a waste of time," I reminded her. "Calls you said were disrupting her rest. Every Sunday for 5 years, while you were at the country club, I was reading medical journals to her. While you complained about her stubborn refusal to move to assisted living, I was coordinating with her doctors to keep her comfortable at home. That's not. We had obligations. You had tea times, I said flatly. I had a grandmother who listened to my residency stories and told me about the female doctors who paved the way, who understood why I spent 18-hour days in the PICU instead of networking at charity galas, who never once asked me when I was going to give up this doctor phase and join the family business of being disappointed in everyone else. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in my life, I'd rendered my mother speechless. Mr. Morrison returned with a stack of documents. Dr. Hamilton, we can complete these in my office. Your family is welcome to stay here as long as they need. As I reached the door, my father's voice stopped me. Eleanor was my mother. Despite what you think, I loved her. We all did. I turned back one last time. I know you did, Dad, in your own way. But love isn't just about showing up for the reading of the will. It's about showing up for the reading of bedtime stories to sick children. It's about understanding why someone would choose healing over profit. It's about seeing the value in a granddaughter who measures success in lives saved, not millions earned. So what now? Marcus asked bitterly. You're going to lord this over us forever? Use Grandma's money to prove you're better than us? No, I said simply. I'm going to do exactly what I've been doing. Complete my residency. Open the pediatric clinic Grandma and I planned in the Brahms property. Live in the brownstone because it's closer to the hospital. And yes, find tenants who actually appreciate below market rent in Manhattan. The Brahms property is worth millions, Dad protested. You can't just turn it into some charity clinic. Watch me, I said. Or don't. Your choice. But either way, it's happening. The Eleanor Hamilton Free Pediatric Clinic will open next year, just like she wanted. Mr. Morrison held the door for me, but I paused one more time. Oh, and Mom. That comment about me being too young to manage the estate. You're right about one thing, 28 is young. Young enough to remember every time you told me I wasn't good enough. Young enough to have decades ahead of me to prove you wrong. And definitely young enough to find new tenants who won't try to gaslight me at my grandmother's will reading. The last thing I saw before the door closed was my mother's face. A perfect mixture of rage, regret, and the dawning realization that she'd bet on the wrong child. Outside, Mr. Morrison's assistant handed me a tissue. I hadn't realized I was crying. Your grandmother, Mr. Morrison said gently, left you one more thing. She said to give it to you after the reading, regardless of how it went. He handed me a small envelope. Inside, Grandma's shaky handwriting spelled out a simple message. My little bird, they'll call you too young, too idealistic, too soft for this world of sharp edges. Let them. You've chosen to heal rather than harm, to build rather than tear down. The estate isn't your inheritance. Your compassion is. The rest is just tools to help you spread it. All my love, Grandma Eleanor. P.S. Your parents' lease is month to month for a reason. Sometimes loving someone means giving them the chance to grow. Sometimes it means giving them the opportunity to find somewhere else to grow. Your choice, little bird. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into my pocket. Tomorrow, I had a 16-hour shift in the PICU. Next week, I had meetings with architects about the clinic. Next month, I had to decide what to do about my parents' housing situation. But today I was going to drive to Grandma's lake house, my lake house, and sit on the dock where she'd taught me to fish, where she told me stories about the female doctors who'd fought for their place in medicine, where she promised that one day I'd understand why she pushed me to fly even when everyone else wanted to clip my wings. Dr. Hamilton? Mr. Morrison's assistant appeared again. There's one more thing. Your grandmother left instructions for a celebration dinner tonight at Le Bernardin. She made a reservation for two, you and a guest of your choosing. I smiled, the first real smile since I'd entered the building. Did she say who I should bring? She said, and I quote, someone who saw your worth before you inherited mine. I knew exactly who to call. Dr. Sarah Chen, my residency mentor, who'd held my hand through my first patient loss and celebrated my first successful diagnosis. Who'd never asked about my family's money or connections. Who'd simply said, "You have good hands and a better heart. That's all that matters in this job." As I walked through the Manhattan streets toward my car, past the building where my parents would soon no longer live, past the Bronx property that would soon heal instead of hoard, I felt Grandma Eleanor's presence like a warm embrace. 28 years old. Too young to inherit, they'd said. Too young to understand responsibility. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was too young to understand their version of responsibility, the kind that prioritized profit over people, that measured worth in dollars rather than dedication. But I was exactly the right age to understand Grandma's version, the kind that saw an estate not as an ending, but as a beginning. Not as power over others, but as the power to help them. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "This isn't over." I typed back, "You're right. It's just beginning." Then I blocked his number, got in my car, and drove toward my new life. Behind me, in that cold conference room, my family was learning what Grandma Eleanor had always known. Sometimes the youngest birds fly the highest, especially when someone believes in their wings. The estate was never about the money. It was about trust. And Grandma Eleanor had trusted the one person in the family who understood that healing meant more than having, that helping meant more than hoarding. Her little bird was ready to soar.